All right, welcome back to Shooting the Lights Out as we get to our women's side of the college basketball slate. And before we get up out of here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start off by saying Don Staley said this going into this past weekend. Undefeated South Carolina doesn't need a loss for a push. And I think I agree with her. You'll see why in a minute. South Carolina, Indiana, Stanford, and Utah projected top seeds for the final reveal. It's projected that South Carolina be the overall seed, Indiana be the 2, Stanford the 3, and Utah being the 4. 2 Pac-12 teams getting number 1 seeds. That would be interesting. They have UConn as a 2 seed right now, and if that does hold up, they'll be in the same bracket as the South Carolina Gamecocks. That would be interesting if that is your Elite 8 matchup for a Final Four spot. South Carolina, UConn. Just a thought. Just a thought. NCAA sanctions Miami women's hoops for NIL related fractions. This kind of threw me off a bit, to be honest. Still trying to figure out what exactly they did wrong to get this suppression. So I'm gonna go back to the article again and see what happens here. It says here the NCAA issued its first sanction in a case related to name, image, and likeness opportunities for college athletes Friday. Namely, the Miami women's basketball program with a year probation and another minor penalty for its involvement in urging a meeting between a wealthy alum and 2 players who transferred to the school last summer. The case involves several predominant figures in the instance marketplace for NIL deals, none of whom received any direct sanctions from the NCAA. The sanctions stem from a meeting between Miami alum John Woods and transfer basketball players Haley and Hannah Covender. Excuse me. But these sanctions have taken place. Nobody in this is happy about it. There'll be some lawsuits being thrown around towards the NCAA and whatnot. So we shall see what happens with them because Miami, they was on the verge of making the NCAA tournament. So we shall see if they're still allowed to be in the NCAA tournament or not. But yeah, that's a big one. Notre Dame top star Olivia Miles injured right knee. She injured her knee yesterday's game. And there's no timetable for her return. There's no updates on her injury as of right now. So if you're a Notre Dame fan, follow it. Follow whoever you need to follow for updates on it. But that is a big loss when she misses significant time. Olivia Miles injures right knee for Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Utah earns share of first Pac-12 title with dream win over Stanford. I'll get to that game in a bit, but yes, the Utah Utes have earned a share of the Pac-12 title. So going right to that game, it was the Utah Utes hosting the Stanford Cardinals over the weekend, and with the Utes winning 84-78, getting a share of the Pac-12 title with the Stanford Cardinals. The Red River rivalry of women's college basketball took place in Norman, Oklahoma, with 13-ranked Sooners hosted 19-ranked Longhorns, and it was the Longhorns. Shout out to Megan Price and her Longhorns going on the road to knock off the Sooners in Norman, Oklahoma, 67-45. The men felt an upset in their last game, so did the women. Oregon State, ladies and gentlemen, hosted the Lady Wildcats of Arizona, ranked 14th in the country. And it was the Beavers knocking out the Wildcats, 78-70. Continuing on, we had Memphis and SMU both battling for Bubba teams. The game went in overtime, and the Memphis Lady Tigers take it 69-68. Speaking of the Miami Hurricanes, they hosted Virginia down in Coral Gables, 85-74. It was no contest. Miami girls are just balling. But we'll see how these infractions to the NIL deals hurt the Miami Hurricanes this postseason and probably going forward. Before the men's crazy game between Michigan and Wisconsin, it was the ladies took stage first when 12th ranked Wolverines went to Madison to take on the Badgers, and it was the Badgers at home winning this one 78-70, getting a top 15 win, but that would not cut it for them. That's a bad loss for the Lady Wolverines. Speaking of bad losses, 23rd ranked Florida State Seminoles. They was in Death Valley to take on the Clemson Tigers, and they didn't walk out of there victorious. They got upset by the Tigers, 74-61. And then we get to Sunday slate. Sunday slate was a doozy one, ladies and gentlemen. We kicked it off with the Georgia Bulldogs in Columbia, South Carolina, to take on the number one team in the reigning defending champion Gamecocks. And as you can see, 73-63. I don't think they need a push. I don't think they need a loss for a push because this team keeps rolling. They just keep on running. They keep on winning by double digits. In the game where Olivia Miles injured her knee, it was the 10th ranked Fighting Irish taking on the Louisville Cardinals in Louisville, Kentucky. Good back and forth game between the Fighting Irish and the Cardinals, but it was the Fighting Irish coming out victorious on the road, 68-56, thus winning the ACC. Because the next game underneath was the Tobacco Road rivalry between North Carolina and Duke, and Cameron Indoors, the 11-ranked Blue that had a double-digit lead, and watch it evaporate to their arch rival Tar Heels as the Tar Heels come back and win 45-41, giving the regular season title to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish because North Carolina came back and stunned the Blue Devils. In the Big Ten Showdown game of the week between number 2 Indiana Hoosiers versus number 6 Iowa Hawkeye, a battle back and forth. No team was in control, but Katie Clark called game. Down 83-85 with just seconds left, she called game from a three-point range, and it went in 86-85. Katie Clark sends the Iowa Hawkeyes home victorious on Senior Day in Iowa City. As we continue on, we had the Kansas Jayhawks hosting the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Two teams fighting for a postseason berth, with Kansas needed a much-needed win for the Kansas Jayhawks as they are on the bubble fighting for their playoff lives. 66-57 win. Ole Miss and Alabama got together in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and it was the Lady Rebels taking it 57-55 on the road in Tuscaloosa. Good win for the Lady Rebels of Ole Miss. And then the final game, it was the Mississippi State Bulldogs. They were in the SEC's Death Valley to take on 5th-ranked LSU Tigers. Angel Weiss and the Tigers, they are just rolling. 74-59 blowout win over the Bulldogs. Games to look forward to on the women's side tonight, 7 p.m. FS1, 15th-ranked Wildcats of Villanova. They are taking on Seton Hall on the road. Also at 7 o'clock on ESPN2, the Baylor Bears versus the Texas Longhorns down in Austin, Texas. Can Baylor get a much-needed win against 19th-ranked Texas? We shall see. And FS1 continues the Big East fight. Two teams on the bubble, DePaul versus Marquette. Marquette needs a win. DePaul looking for a win. Tomorrow, no, not tomorrow. We'll skip tomorrow. Go straight to the month of March because March, Kansas State Wildcats. They are in Northern Oklahoma to take on the Oklahoma Sooners. Kansas State needs a big win, and they can get it in Northern Oklahoma to begin March to pad their resume to get into the NCAA tournament. Another team looking to pad their resume to the NCAA tournament, the West Virginia Mountaineers. They are hosting the Oklahoma State Cowboys at 7 p.m. on the Big 12 Network. After that, on the Big 12 Network, number 20, the Iowa State Cyclones. They are in Allen Fieldhouse to take on the Kansas Jayhawks. These are just like Jordan Renati, Charlie Creams. These were the teams he was looking at Saturday going into the weekend. Last four byes: Purdue, Illinois, Miami, and Kansas. Last four in: Marquette, St. John, Princeton, Syracuse. First four out: Oregon, Nebraska, West Virginia, Arkansas. Next four out: Toledo, Missouri, Kansas State, and Washington. But that is But for some of these teams, conference tournaments I've already played. If you're in the SEC, if you're Miami, if you're Syracuse, if you're some of these teams, conference tournament is already on their way because beginning March 1st, ladies and gentlemen, the ACC tournament gets off. You have Wake Forest versus Virginia. You have Clemson versus Pitt, and you have Boston College versus Georgia Tech to take off the ACC tournament that will take place from March 1st with the championship game on Sunday, March 5th. We shall see who's going to get the automatic bid to the NCAA tournament from the ACC. Not only that, the Big Ten's women's tournament tips off on March 1st. Well, Penn State and Minnesota kicking things off, followed by Northwestern and Rutgers. Also, that championship game will be Sunday, March 5th. So who will get the automatic bid from the Big Ten tournament? And finally, the SEC tournament tips off on Wednesday, March 1st, beginning with the Texas A&M Aggies and the Vanderbilt Commodores, followed by the Kentucky Wildcats and the Florida Gators. My Gators, who have not been impressive whatsoever this season, they see if they can make a run here and try to do something here. But nevertheless, it is South Carolina's tournament to lose. That championship game would be taking place on Sunday, March